Sometimes we want to blame it on the tension. It's not the tension, and there's Hey guys, welcome to my channel, So Cray Cray. So here's a little bit of information on that. It could be a few different things. So first off, if it's a new machine, out of the box, the dial is already set and it should be set to go and ready to go. Don't touch that dial, just leave it alone. There's only once in a great while when you're going to actually mess with the tension on it. I have some tips. Just is the bobbin is wound incorrectly. That thread that's looping up on the back of your materials. If you have this manual to the sewing machine, take a look at that and refer back to that first, because a lot of times a machine is actually threaded differently than from the rest of them. And then the other thing could be the bobbin is the wrong bobbin for the machine. It will be too sloppy in there. It want to make sure that it is actually threaded correctly and that the spool of thread is actually facing the correct direction on the machine, and your spool cap is on. There's a few little different tricks. So stick around because I'm going to show you how to do those things correctly. So when threading your machine, you want to make sure thread is going in the direction that the machine says to go. Okay, so mine's telling me that my spool of thread needs to be going just like this, and that's how the thread would actually be being thread through the machine. So it needs to be underneath, not running on top. And I know that it may seem a little silly, and you're probably thinking, hey, why does it not go the same way? It doesn't matter which way the spool should go, it should just go that way. But there's a reason why they tell you which direction to face the big spool of thread. So just make sure that it's running in the correct direction that is telling you to go. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this. And don't forget to put your spool cap on. You need to have that on there. It keeps this in place too. You don't want your big spool of thread being sloppy. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my machine. And make sure to follow all the steps. Now there's going to be arrows that show you which way to run your thread. So mine is telling me number 1, number 2, number 3, and it has the numbers versus letters. So now I'm going to come down to 4 on my number and come up and go back down on 5. There's also another area that a lot of people miss. Now you'd be surprised, but it's pretty important for this thread to actually go in all the places that it needs to go, because this thread is either going to jump spacing or it's just going to run loosely in the machine, and then you're going to have a bunch of loops on the underside of your fabric. So, and what I'm actually talking about here, there is these little catch feet, these little nubs back here, and it's an extra one, an extra holder for the thread. So you want it to go just behind this here, and make sure that you're catching it, because that can play a big role in the looseness of your thread. So say you just had it down like that, and being that this is a automatic threader, so right, you're still going to be able to thread your needle. As you can see, I can still thread mine. However, I have this huge gapping in my thread here, and that's going to play a big role in threading and not jumping threads in spaces that it needs to go. So just make sure that you're looking out for that extra little hook, and that could be one of the other problems that you have. Another problem that you could be having is making sure that your bobbin is the correct bobbin for your machine. Now, whether you buy your machine new out of the box, it's going to come with bobbins, and it will tell you in the manual what bobbins to use. And then you want to make sure that you're always getting the same model number of bobbins for your machine, because they're most of the time they're not going to fit in your machine. So I have an example here. So I have these other plastic ones here. And then I have the bobbin that actually came with my machine. Now you can see this bobbin actually fits in here correctly. And then the extra ones that I bought, it fits in there, but it's so loose and it's moving around that the tension is actually going to be off. It's not actually holding the bobbin deep down inside where it needs to sit. The other problem you can have with your tension, with your thread, with the looping on the back of the fabric, is properly running the thread through the machine and the direction it tells you to go for running your bobbin. So make sure you follow the directions on that too, and most of the time it will have arrows and telling you which way to go. So you'll have the little pictures sometimes it telling you which way to go. So mine is actually telling me step 1, 2, run behind, and then I have this little foot here and I need to go behind that and then bring it in front and then loop my thread around this metal spool here. It has a tension guide in there. And when you're winding a bobbin, you want to make sure that you place your thread in the correct hole. So usually there's going to be different types of bobbins, and it will tell you how to thread your bobbin. Back to your manual on your machine, and it will tell you and guide you too. So most of the time it's you're running the thread down and behind into the hole, and you're bringing it back up, and it's going to look something like this, like that. And you want to hold this thread up, place it on your bobbin spool threader here, and hang on to the tension. Just lightly enough. See, like I have this, it's kind of like I made a mess here. So what you could do is just kind of push on your foot here a little bit and then let go, and full fresh spool of thread when you're getting ready to thread your bobbin. And you can look at it once you've stopped just to make sure that it's threading correctly. Making sure that you cut that tip off. Don't cut it too short. You don't want it falling down in there because it can actually add some slack in there in your machine, and then you're good to go. I would say if you're having a problem is making sure that your thread is going in the right direction and your machine being fed in the bobbin area. Okay, so that could be an issue. When you're putting your bobbin in, dropping it down in place and making sure that it's getting fed all the way into the area where it needs to go. So there's like this little tiny hook inside the bobbin plate, and it actually holds the thread taut in place as it's actually being worked through the machine. I just hope those were helpful to you guys. Let me know, and we'll see you at the next video. And then continue to what is the problem? This is what can happen here, okay? So I want you guys to see this. So see, my machine is having a problem and it's just not going. See, okay. So now what you probably have is a great big mess